Welcome to Still Serving, the VFW podcast, the official podcast of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. And now, from the VFW Memorial Building in Washington, D.C., here's your host, Rob Couture.
And welcome to Still Serving, the VFW podcast. We'll start with roll call. I'm your host, Rob Couture, Director of Public Affairs and Strategic Outreach here at the VFW Washington office in our nation's capital. Joining me here in the room for the roll call is also Mike Figlioli. He is the Director of National Veteran Service and been here since the dawn of time. That's absolutely true. And moving to his left, your right, Patrick Murray, National Legislative Service Director, and to his left, your right. I guess I don't have to do that every single time. It's just weird for me having the camera thing going on. My co-host, Brittany Dymond Murray, Associate Director of Public Affairs and Strategic Outreach. So really glad to be back in here. It is week 50, 2 more weeks left of this year as the holidays are upon us, and we are just getting ready for 2025. It's amazing that this year has gone by so quickly. Anyway, that's my thoughts. Brittany?
Truth. Rob.
Yeah.
Shall I go down and run?
Yeah, let's just go. Let's just do it.
What we're going to chat about today?
You know, the thing is that we have decided that we're going to kind of set this up very loosely to what a VFW post meeting is.
Yes.
Not to say that, you know, we need to have our commander here, Ryan Gallucci, who happens to be out of town. He went to our headquarters in Kansas City for the long-range planning meeting for our incoming next year's Commander-in-Chief, Carol Whitmore, who's now the Senior Vice. So as we get into this, we're looking at formatting it just a little bit like you would a meeting. So, you know, you would have, well, let's just go with it. What do you say? And share with us what that looks like.
All right. So it's going to be an abbreviated post meeting, essentially. That's our structure.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to start off with our old business. So any updates that we have for continuing issues or topics, and then today our new business today. Moving into new business. We have Mike Figlioli, who just returned from a visit to Hawaii.
Yep.
With our Senior Vice Commander-in-Chief, Carol Whitmore. So he's going to be chatting about that. Then Pat Murray is going to be talking about his response to the Economist article that came out recently that many know about.
Yes.
And we'll move on to go to the order, which is how post meetings are closed out generally.
Yeah.
So
now I would have to go back to Mike. Now this is kind of an interesting factoid that you share with everybody, and that is you were born into the VFW, and so Mike's from Boston, and growing up, his parents were very involved with the VFW. He said he went from the hospital there to the post.
Definitely.
So you know how these things go.
I do.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have a quorum?
I would suggest that a quorum is present there. In absence of the commander, I'll defer to you.
Okay. Well, a quorum could be our audience, right? The fifth member, if there's a VFW member out there joining us today, there's our quorum. I guess we can go ahead and start. But, you know, the thing is let's just jump into it, right?
Yep.
So, old business. One of the things that's old business is every year, it's not really old business, it's kind of ongoing business.
business.
Every year we have a roll-up, right? That comes from the VA. And talk a little bit about that, if you will. Since it's almost like our service officer report, right?
It's the service officer report. Sure. It's the report card of what our accredited representatives have achieved for the year. You know, we're celebrating our 125th year, and we set a record for recoveries for those that we represent. Last year, we recovered $13 billion. This most immediate fiscal year that ended in September, we recovered $14.6 billion. So that's a new record for the VFW. Good news is, as everybody at this table knows, but we want you all to know, every single dime went to the veteran. VFW does not get a single portion of any of those recoveries. So $14.6 billion go to everybody we represent. And, that's amazing. So a shout out to the DSOs, ADSOs, claims consultants. Thank you. Very proud to associate myself with you and to work with you.
Yeah, very good. And, there were some factoids, I would have to say, that both Brittany and I learned during this process. We sat down with one of your deputy directors, Chris Masinkowitz, and Brittany. So tell us a little bit about what you learned when you were just kind of drafting up our announcement of this $14.6 billion.
I learned a ton.
Yep.
It was a really quick training session, but it was thorough. And I was astounded by the sheer amount of claims that our service officers do every year.
Right.
It is incredible. Just a snippet. I think it was, I think they processed well over 100,000 claims this year alone. And of those claims, a significant portion, about 14,000, were for transitioning service members alone. So that's part of our pre-discharge
VED,
claims.
Right,
yes,
exactly.
Our pre-discharge claims program, which Mike can expand on if you'd like. But those are benefits delivery at discharge claims. So those are service members who are between 3 and 6 months out from separation or retirement, who are able to file their claims with the VA. And then the goal, which works out for many, is that they get those benefits when they walk out the door, when they take their uniform, when they take off the uniform at discharge. So that really helps them put them on a better, more stable glide path as they enter back into civilian life, with the benefits that come along with that, and obviously some financial stability, because the reality is not every service member retires. And so that's helpful for those folks that are leaving out, after, a contract or two, in order to help them get it's best reintegrated back into their communities as possible. So $14.6 billion is a lot. It's a big number. It's tremendous. So and as part of that mini training session I got with Chris is, VFW represents over 500,000 veterans.
That's 500,000 is, it's a big number out there, right? More than 500,000 veterans that are out there, people that put in their claims decades ago to people that had just put in their claims. And I tell you what, when you're leaving out of the military, as it was for me, it was just that small peace of mind to know that I will have some sort of compensation for the injuries that I sustained during my time in service. And when I'm like, oh man, what kind of job? It's a tremendous amount of stress when you're transitioning. And Mike, I know that you know this, you having dealt with veterans all the time, it's probably one of the biggest things, like you lift this huge weight off their shoulder. Am I right?
Well, it's different these days because VA has done a great job of socializing what it is they provide. 20 years of war, events that you went to, the events that Pat went to, Brittany went to. When I first started in this business, a big claim was 8 to 10 issues. Now they're 20 and 30 issues because people are just aware of our advocacy and what we helped them get through. But when I left the service, TAP was almost non-existent. I got out in 96. That was forever ago for a lot of people. TAP was 3 days. They didn't care if you showed up or not. So it's good to see that DOD has put this emphasis on it, working with VA to make sure that people get their claims in. And it's not so much the career soldiers, flag officers. We do have great fortune in representing a number of them here in the capital region because of what we provide and how good we are at it.
Right.
But you want to see the first term or second termers, the people that don't want to make a career out of it, be educated to make sure that they get the benefits that they deserve, that we advocate for constantly. It's critical. So glad to see the influx. Brittany, you said, somebody said 500 million.
What was that you said, Brittany?
Over 500,000 that we represent.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Exactly right.
Yes.
Yeah, we have 590,000 clients. We filed 146,000 claims last year. Like you said, almost 15,000 in BDD, pre-discharge. And that's critical because we're on those bases across the country to get the word out to make sure that these veterans get their benefits when they separate.
Yeah.
Provides housing, provides health care. And we know statistically that they're most at risk of suicide within the first year of separation.
Yeah.
So it's another important issue.
I think this is, as we get into it, and Brittany, like you were saying, I'm sorry, I was talking over there for a moment, but that's part of what we're going to be talking about later with the new business, right? It's his trip coming back from Hawaii.
That's true. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but Pat, to this, it's kind of like cyclical, right? So you're out there on Capitol Hill, you're advocating for these sort of things. The PACT Act was huge, when we did that a few years ago, and that constant push, which was more than just a 2-year win. We were going for toxic exposure and pushing for legislation to help increase the, presumptives that, Mike and his team are, they're sitting there when they're helping out veterans, those presumptives that you fight for on Capitol Hill end up going back into, the things that he's able to help veterans file for. So, with this number, what does this do for you and your team when you go to advocate on behalf of veterans?
So in particular, the one about 14,000 claims of separating service members. That's huge. That's our BDD program. And the VFW is one of only two organizations that do that. So that means that if you're not at a location where either the VFW has a service officer or DAV is another one that has a very similar program, then you're on your own. What I focus on is trying to get legislation passed. What we're trying to do is get what's called the TAP Promotion Act passed, which would ensure that in every base that is practical, they have those services. So your county service officers, your state service officers, or the VFW or DAV or any other major organization that does this, that if they have the availability to provide those services, they're allowed to do it. The TAP Promotion Act was supposed to have been put in the NDAA, which is going right now. It got stripped out because certain folks don't like it, but those who do, Senator Angus King in the Senate is pushing for it, and also Representative Derek Van Orden, VFW member, is pushing for it in the House. So we know that we're recording this at the end of December.
Sure.
It's not likely going to get done in the session, so it means we're going to pick it back up in January to make sure that the services that Mike and his team provide are accessible to every service member, not just the ones that the VFW are fortunate enough to work with.
And this bill is unique in that it's just codifying something that's already happening.
Right.
So VA has already included service officers in their curriculum. That started way back in January of this year. And so all the TAP Promotion Act would do is ensure that continues. It would enshrine it in law.
But that was a result of you and
The result of our
advocating.
direct result of our
years for us to get into those BDD sessions. And now with TAP 6.0 and affording us the time to give the message of what we provide, what the VA will provide for separating service members, that was critical. That just shows another level of our advocacy and what NLS and NBS do. And
yeah, it's a great example of teamwork, that they do the great work and we go talk about it.
We go talk.
Well, speaking of the good work that you all do, would you, could we move on to new business with Hawaii? Would you guys look at that? So you just came back from a trip to Hawaii. So as the VFW does, according to our manual of procedure and ritual, we have certain dates that we commemorate. And one of those happens to be Pearl Harbor Day. So we bring our commander-in-chief sometimes, or senior vice, whoever's available, and we go to Hawaii. The person who has been doing this for a long time is Mike. And Mike, so you're just coming back from this trip for Hawaii, but it's not just, hey, you go there for the ceremony and that's it. It's normally a pretty full trip.
It's more than that.
Yeah, it's very full. You got a full week. Yes, you are in Hawaii, so people had their own preconceived notions. But it's a work week.
Yeah.
The highlight and the culmination is the ceremony, December 7th, and it's important for the organization, 125 years old, to be there. But we weren't the only VSO there. The American Legion was there, the VFW was there. There were several other MSOs on site. They're all commemorating, the 83rd remembrance of Pearl Harbor. But prior to that, it's work. The senior vice commander meets with DOD. She meets with VA. We had the opportunity to meet with the Joint Base Pearl Harbor installation commander and his deputy commander. And she was able to give her vision in her upcoming year and talk about the good things that the organization does. And she stressed BDD and she stressed the advocacy that we do. Then later on that evening, it was very kind of the captain. He hosted Carol for a dinner in her honor in his quarters with his staff. There was about 20 people there from different Air Force and Navy lines of business that came to meet Carol. And again, Carol gave this talk about the VFW, our 125-year history. What do we advocate for? What do our service officers provide? Definitely talked about, claim sharks and the other thing. Then had some really good meetings with the veterans, with the VA. We got to meet the commander of the hospital, who also happened to be the 38th Surgeon General of the Navy. Yeah, Admiral Robinson. Really, really smart guy. While we were there, we visited a smaller Seabuck on the windward side. So not everybody has to go to Tripoli now. Everybody can, kind of stay out of that traffic.
Yeah.
Now you can go to Seabuck and windward, but they just opened a brand new, absolutely huge Seabuck. It's
acronym for those people.
Community-based outpatient clinic. Thank you.
Yeah, there we go.
Not everybody knows VA speak.
Or VA math for that.
We'll give a class on that later.
Yeah.
but it's named after Senator Kaka, who, as you know, was a longtime chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee. And all the services are there. And we got to meet other groups. People came in from Guam, from the Solomon Islands, from the Indo-Pacific region, and from the Federated States to take this tour of this facility. And now, once again, nobody has to drive all the way into Tripoli, where parking is limited, and you have to walk up hills and, then meander your way through an older hospital. So having those touch points with BA and DOD, having, the number 2 person that's in the chain of command in the organization shows outliers and people that might be tracking what we do that, we're not just a smoky barroom and $2 beers. I think it's really important for us to continue to talk about that. So what we do as an organization to continue to dispel that rumor.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we just opened up a brand new BDD site there on Joint Base Pearl Harbor-Hickam, which means that before then, where were these people going to have to do their BDD, having to go online? So was that the way it was before?
Not all the way.
I'd say if we weren't there or if DAV wasn't there, they weren't doing it.
So generally
they might have found it on their own, but
yeah,
they would have, or they had to go to the local service office located in Tripoli. But now having a dedicated office that separates the BDD or pre-discharge people who are separating with 180 days out from their ETS date from veterans who have already been in the system or have a claim in, that alleviates the 2 business lines. So it takes the pressure off of the local DSO having to do BDD claims and service, veterans who have already put in actions or need to put in actions. And now there's a focal point in the middle of the Joint Base where people can go and, we were fortunate enough to hold a nice ribbon cutting ceremony where the installation commander came from there. But the backstory of that is he was also the commander in Guantanamo Bay.
Right.
Yes, he was.
And I know you had the opportunity to meet him. And they established a post in Guantanamo Bay this past year, VFW post 12225. And it's really important. It's the second post that was there. The first one, it had its lifespan and then it went away.
70s and then.
But, on the tour of the base, we went up to the hill where the VFW was born, where the battle was fought. And just on the other side of the post cemetery, which didn't exist then, obviously. But, to see the whole thing, especially as a lifelong VFW member, or advocate then member lately, to be able to see where we started and then to have Captain White carry that admiration and respect for the organization from Cuba. He wanted us present in Hawaii when he took command.
Yeah, that's right. So people know, or may not know, we're 125 years into this, 1899. If you think about it and your history, we're talking about the Philippine-American War, the Spanish-American War. We're in Cuba, we're in the Philippines, and then also those that went to the Chinese, the Boxer Rebellion in China. So then that kind of came together, all those, and they became the American Veterans of Foreign Service, and then eventually the VFW. So little history lesson on the VFW and where we came from. And that's why Mike's talking about how it started there in Cuba. And that's where many of our members had served. And the first iteration of the VFW, or what we were before, where they had served, those veterans. So kind of pop up in between wars. But anyway, I think it's really great that we talk about the amount of, we talk about this because it brings to light how many U.S. service members, military families, veterans that are there in Hawaii, and major commands, and they're focused on the Pacific, and each one has their own command there. And like, for instance, I know that like the Marines, right? They have, was it like Marine Pacific that's there in Honolulu? And I'm going to go to you, Pat, because you're a Marine, right? So they're moving a lot of these Marines from where they were in Okinawa down to Guam. And what are we talking about here? Like, it's part of what MEF is there on the three MEF. Yep. So I guess based out of California, and then they have an element that goes forward. How does that work?
So I'll be honest with the moving around. I'm actually not 100% sure. I believe it was based out of Japan at one point in Okinawa. First is out of California, second's out of North Carolina, and then third is the Pacific. Right. But one of the things that when we first talked about, to bring back the BDD site, I think the number was 12.5% of the separating force separates out of Hawaii. And because as some of the folks who are just, whether they're tied to there, whether that's their headquarters, whether they're physically stationed there or not, that's a huge percent. That is massive. And so that's why it's so important that we're there, showing 12.5% of the separating force every year that's what we're here to do. Help them, file their BDD claims, help them, hopefully transition back to their communities, and show them what the VFW has been doing for that 125 years.
Yeah.
And that's a significant number because it's on average, we say on average, about 200,000 service members separate every year. So 12.5% is a lot of people that could really benefit from our services, which is why it's so awesome, amazing that we have a brand new BDD location there.
Yep. And I would say that is probably the biggest win of all this time that we've spent going back to Hawaii, because it's been a long road for you to get there and have a BDD site and on Joint Base Pearl Harbor-Hickam. Am I right, Mike?
Took a while. It was something that had been discussed for a number of years, and actually it was the back end of another trip. We had gone to Korea because we are still actively trying to establish a BDD site in Korea, still having some roadblocks with some Pentagon legal issues, primarily SOFA.
Yeah.
So we're working through that. And on the way back, we happened to stop in Hawaii to discuss the possibility of opening an office there. And again, having that association through Guantanamo Bay really kind of made it easy because the skipper was adamant that VFW was going to be present. Went and met with the people from DOD and Dr. William Kono, and he was on it that day. I think we had a space identified within 2 days. And then within a few months, we finally got somebody hired, Charles Tibbetts, retired Navy chief. So thank you, Charles, for undertaking that business, because he's been busy since day one. So it was a long slog. It was 5 or 6 years between the visits to Korea and then to Hawaii. So
yeah, and the thing is, it kind of lends itself to the work that we've been doing for like 105 years, right? Of you guys cutting red tape there on Capitol Hill and fighting for benefits for veterans, which leads us to our latest topic, right? So there was this article in The Economist, and it was, shall we say, rather absurd in their view of veterans benefits, as they looked at it and said, well, maybe veterans don't need all these benefits. Well, maybe they're making things up. Maybe,
too generous.
Too generous with their benefits. So our very own Pat Murray was a little incensed because it happened there on Thanksgiving, right?
Thanksgiving Day.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. It was dropped in your lap.
Yes.
As you were eating turkey.
Yes.
Leftovers. I read it the day after. But how much am I allowed to swear?
Look, if you can censor it to what we put out, what you edited it down to.
Sure. So the title of the piece in The Economist, which was not attributed to any author, that's what The Economist does with most of its articles. They kind of just put it to the publication, not an actual person.
Which, by the way, that was kind of new to me. I didn't even know that they did that on a regular basis.
I don't know if they always have. In just the brief review of the past months or so, that's what they seem to do. And also, when you put something out inflammatory like that, feel free to put your name on it. If you want to write an article that puppies and hot dogs and apple pie are pretty sweet, no one's going to get mad at you. You don't need to attribute that. But if you're going to write an article titled American Veterans Are Now Receiving Absurdly Generous Benefits, then put your name on it, you anonymous cowards.
Yes, because you just put a big, target on your back, so to speak. And that's probably why they didn't have their name on there.
Right. So the article had a few different things that we've kind of seen before, veterans almost, like milking it.
Like tropes we've seen before.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, talking points.
And some of it was tired. Some of it was like retreads. You could tell that the author probably wasn't that skilled at what they were doing. It looked like they're kind of copying from what other folks had done. It was lazy. But there were a couple of things in there that did kind of stand out that were particularly maddening. The first of which was a Stanford professor named...
Is it Mark Duggan?
Mark Duggan.
Right.
Mark Duggan had a quote in there that said that it incentivizes, once you're in the disability compensation system, it incentivizes you not to get better. It's that moment that you just want to like smack the shit out of someone for it, because very few chronic ailments, injuries, things like that can just get magically fixed. Oftentimes you have to, work around them, deal with them, make other accommodations to still continue to live and thrive with them. And for myself, I have a prosthetic leg.
Yep.
I'm not incentivized not to get better because my leg isn't growing back.
So you haven't figured out how to grow back your leg like Deadpool? I've
tried. I watched a documentary on starfish one time, hoping that mine will also grow back.
Yeah.
Hasn't happened yet.
Your name is Patrick.
It is. Yep. But, so you see that and you just say, like, you really don't know what you're talking about. There were other parts in there that were kind of maddening. But then, the part about that Americans' obsession with veterans has gone too far.
Ooh, and that was because, for those that don't know, The Economist is a UK publication. So we were kind of like, well, who's he talking about here? Is he talking to the British audience about how Americans are obsessed with veterans, or that's gone too far?
It was unclear.
And so to that, I mean, I ask anybody that genuinely thinks that, look back to our Vietnam veterans who went through this 50 some years ago, right? And were brought back. Their government sent them to an unpopular war. Many were drafted to go do that and were brought back and treated like crap and had to, struggle and fight for all the things that they should have also earned. Thankfully, America kind of course corrected over the past couple generations. And, we're very fortunate that we believe mostly America recognizes that, the men and women who get sent off to go do some, hard jobs in crappy places should be taken care of, especially their health care and benefits for what they've earned. And seeing that written in the Economist, I just, it was maddening.
And there was a giant detail that was just not discussed.
Well, that was also the second main thing that you could tell that the author of this, again, lazy, but also intentionally keeping a main part out of there in order to kind of frame their argument in their own, stupid bias.
So what was it? They kept a certain
what they
part
said was they kept referring to the amount of disabled veterans since 2001 that was growing, the amount of 100% disabled veterans that was growing since 2001. There was a third thing that referenced 2001, and then they just moved on to the next paragraph, not continuing that line of saying also, hey, jackass, our 20-year global war on terror also started in 2001. Yeah. So by intentionally leaving that out, I mean, I know they think we're stupid, right? By writing that article the way they did, but it's so blatant that they were that stupid.
Well, crayons. I just have to say
that we can't put 1 and 1 together, not 2 and 2.
Yeah,
1 and 1 together. Right. That you're clearly trying to just leave out a major reason why veterans who are disabled may be growing. 20 years of war. There are certain, like I only did 1 deployment overseas, but there are so many others who did multiple deployments. That's different than generations of the past.
Right.
Generations of past troops trained and fought with, your deuce gear and a Kevlar and a canteen and things like that. Today's men and women are training and fighting with, 40 pounds of gear. That's going to the range now. That never mind going to Iraq and Afghanistan or other parts of the world. We're seeing that Syria is now back on the map. But so there's so many places now that we're getting deployed for months at a time, maybe multiple times. But then when you're back here, whether you're in California or North Carolina or Hawaii, like we talked about, you're training like you fight. And you're training with dozens of pounds of gear. So the wear and tear on the body,
oh yeah,
that the average, 19-year-old, PFC, whatever is going through is different. It's nothing, it's not better. It's not anything like that. It's different. And what that does to your joints, your muscles, your ligaments.
Oh, let alone your lower back. Well, I can get best. And so back surgery here.
To frame this in a way of pointing at us as if we're the problem is insulting. Mark Duggan, kiss my ass. The Economist, come find me. But it was kind of cathartic to get those words out, and thankfully it was received very well. a lot of our folks, our VFW members were saying, kind of like, hey, thanks for saying what I was thinking, or that my anger, I guess, was
well
understood, received. So
absolutely well articulated. And I would say, with all the people on there that really, a lot of shares, a lot of people that were, really supportive. It kind of goes down to like, okay, so you got this population of folks or these people that are pundits and they're thinking about, they're like, they're critical of veterans benefits. And you're like, oh man, we have to pay them for their injury, compensate them for the rest of their life. Well, yeah, isn't that better than us being dead back there in Iraq and Afghanistan?
You'd say so. And, so I was reminded just last night, a friend of ours from an organization called TAPS. I know we talked about TAP, but this is TAPS, the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors. And she reminded me that they have, a very common theme that they say is that they would give back every dollar if it means their loved one was here. And, veterans, personally speaking, would give back every dollar if it meant I got my leg back, or things like that.
I would love to be able to run again.
Yep.
There's legitimately running over a decade.
And there's so many that are in that same scenario that we didn't ask for this. And, I'm not keeping the prosthetic just so I get that sweet, sweet handicap parking spot.
Did you see the parking spot though?
Really nice.
Right in front of the building. It's so great.
Yeah. No, I mean, actually, when I drove towards that bomb, I yelled, "I'm doing it for the parking."
In the dark.
This is perfect.
But that's obviously an absurd thing. But this idea that we were like voluntarily choosing this is just wrong.
Yeah, well, that'll be a follow-up article. Maybe they'll write an article about abuse of handicap parking stickers by veterans or something.
Well, Mike, I mean, I want to get to you on this particular point because, look, the VFW, we fought for a long time to get veterans of the Vietnam War recognized for presumptives due to exposure to Agent Orange. And, people it was the same thing, calling them fake, calling them, oh, you're making those things up. Oh, well, that's just genetics. I mean, totally unfair.
Lifestyle.
So when you've seen veterans, by you helping them with their benefits, you've changed their lives.
We have. That's not lost on me. It's not lost on me what you said. You think about the people that were in this building years ago when I was younger and that worked to pass the Agent Orange Act of 1975?
There's also one of 90, I think.
The progressive, but additions to it. Even though it was a framework, just like the PACT Act. The PACT Act is a framework that's going to be tweaked and added to.
Right.
And then to think of our staff and when these veterans come in every day and the process is simplified for them and they get a result that they deserve. And like you said, they get that life-changing letter that says, your service and your sacrifice, whether it be your time, your effort, your mental health, your physical body parts has been recognized by your government.
Sometimes that alone, that obviously everything that comes with it, but that alone, having that recognized so that you don't feel that you're still going to have to continue to fight or that, the things that you deep down know, my service, this is a result of my service. So you're not having to prove,
right.
Right.
Again and again and again and fight and be told it isn't.
Right.
Well,
that's powerful.
To get that assistance.
To get validation. Yeah.
Have that discussion with your service officer, whether it's us or another organization.
Yeah, sure.
Have that discussion. See what can be claimed, what can't be claimed. Not everything's claimable.
Right.
But, we'll help you get that recognition. And it was so long overdue for Vietnam veterans. The first Gulf War, I think we kind of brought them back under our fold with all the celebrations of the 100-hour war and the success we had then.
Yeah.
And, what did they say? What have we heard them say? This will never happen to a veteran again.
Right.
To your point about the piece for the Pat wrote, it wasn't just to the States and our membership. I mean, there was even some international reaction, right?
There was. That's true. What was it? Somebody from Sweden?
Yeah.
Sweden, even. Sweden. These are, we 2 decades. And, it wasn't just the U.S. It wasn't just U.S. personnel over there.
Right.
Our allies were there as well. And so it tracks that perhaps, they're experiencing some of the same challenges.
Well, absolutely. And if you've talked to anybody that, I've been on a few events where we have our international partners people that we served with that were in NATO. And
ISAF?
they don't get what we get over here. But the thing is that our government, we sign an enlistment contract. I'm sure everybody does, right?
Yep.
Some people are conscripted, but we're in the all-volunteer force now. We sign a contract that is more than an employment agreement. Am I right? I mean, this tells you, we're giving up some certain inalienable rights to serve our country, to defend our nation, giving up, we have to obey all lawful orders. We have to subject ourselves to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. We have to, modify our behavior that's within the standards of our particular service. Yeah, absolutely. And if we don't, by the way, that could jeopardize the nature of our separation, whether it's like a dishonorable or general discharge.
Lifelong impacts.
Which could impact your jobs and also our VA claims. Clearly stated in our contract. But you know what else is clearly stated? Is that we are entitled to all the compensation and benefits, not exact words there, but all the benefits, right, that come with service. And by the way, we do have to go to combat. I don't, that does.
We don't get to say no thank you.
Let me hold it this way. A wise man that once occupied a place upstairs, his favorite thing to say, and it's true, those benefits that they so eloquently didn't write about, that you so eloquently responded to quote him, it's the law of the land.
Yeah.
And we will advocate for the law of the land and the maximum benefit for the veteran, their family, or survivor until such time as the law changes.
Right.
It's the law of the land. End.
Yes. And so for those that are, I'm sure you can imagine if you're just listening to it, that's Mike making his point on the table as he's banging on it. If he had a gavel, I'm sure he'd be banging that as well.
We should get a gavel.
Yeah, maybe we need to get a gavel. That might be a good thing. Just kind of keep it there, and we'll just give the gavel to whoever. All right, you got the gavel for today. But Pat, I will have to say, great job on that response. I know it was heartfelt. I'm glad that we shared it. I'm sure more people shared it because it was sans profanity from the original that you wrote. And I know there's a lot of people like, hey, how can you do that? But hey, but I still love a turkey-sized dump that they took on us.
That was a major headline.
Funniest, a turkey-sized dump. That Task and Purpose shared that. Jeff Schogel, thank you for sharing. That was awesome. And by the way, Task and Purpose, look at them coming, immediately picked up on it.
Oh, yeah.
And then, they had the receipts of The Economist.
So
weren't you the ones calling for war?
I don't follow The Economist on Twitter, but I do follow Task and Purpose. And that's actually where I first saw it that Friday after Thanksgiving. So, shout out their team. I was communicating with a couple of them, and there's some great folks. But yeah, they were right on it. And in the same vein, saying, hey, you bloody wankers, pound sand. So no, shout out Task and Purpose guys. That was great.
Yeah, and Task and Purpose, and there are all the people out there. They're very supportive. Hey, look, one thing Ryan and I have been talking a lot about lately. Actually, we've been talking about this for a few years. Is that 90 years ago, the VFW and veterans writ large were facing a similar fight, where there were those who were looking to chop the budget of the federal government, and they're like, Where's the biggest expenditure? Veterans benefits. We can chop that right away. We've seen some of these pictures from
1930s VFW magazines.
Yeah,
our
Foreign Service.
Foreign Service at the time it was called. You could open up to a page in those magazines, and it's identical to the conversations today, including VFW's response. And
they said turkey-sized dump, and then
they did turkey-sized dump.
I don't know if that. I don't think that
maybe not that specifically.
Oh, that's probably want to put it in print.
Those guys are pretty sweet.
Yeah, those guys right there. It would be like in one of those body magazines that they had back in the day that only certain people had, or maybe they were in the bathroom.
See here, turkey-sized dump, huh?
In the 30s.
In the 30s. It's remarkable the conversations that they were having, the rhetoric that they were pushing back against.
Pretty amazing.
It's the through line, the parallels are astoundingly similar.
Yeah, we're going to look to share some of those.
We will.
From the cartoons, the political cartoons over there.
To commentary.
To the commentary. I mean, we had senators, congressmen, people that were writing for the magazine at the time. And this is 1932 to 33, fighting against what was then called the National Economy League, which were big business folks, big business interests that were looking to advise the government on what to chop, what to cut.
Mm-hmm.
And the first big chop, and you can also imagine we're talking about going into the Great Depression,
Mm-hmm.
right? So who gets
inflation, unemployment issues, just came off a war.
We balance the budget on the backs of our veterans.
It's almost as if history is repeating itself. So that's what we're here to make sure does not happen. Just like our forefathers before us, we will make sure that we continue to hold that line.
Yeah. Hashtag we've been here before.
Hashtag we've been here before. So here we are. Where are we in this in our podcast as far as our agenda goes?
So next up is good of the order.
All
Is there
right.
any lingering points or new thoughts that should be brought to light you want to discuss?
Well, this weekend, I know that we talked a little last time about the uniforms for the Army Navy game, but this weekend is the actual game itself.
Yes.
Go Army, beat Navy.
That's right. Oh, we kind of have like an Army thing, Army side here and a Navy side there.
Navy.
Yeah.
Well, but right now, Army's kind of got a run of a few victories in a row, just like Navy did before that. This year, Army's a hell of a team. Their quarterback should be brought up as a Heisman candidate. All right.
Ooh.
Like he should be considered.
And it should have been in the CFP.
Yes. You got to at least give him a 12 seed. Let him play.
I don't know what that means, but I'm going to.
In sports ball.
Okay.
According to
Good.
Whatever.
We're going to bring an acronym chart out.
He's got numbers that are better than any player this year. I know that Sanders from Colorado, it's likely shooing for Heisman, but man, come on. Put Army in for consideration. Daly, I think is his name. So, but excited to see the game.
Well, think about it. When was the last time any service academy was ranked? It's been a long time. And this year they were both ranked at different points.
well, the crazy thing is that when Navy was
football, not for
Navy was ranked maybe about 10 years ago when
It's been a while.
yeah, it has. And that happens every now and then. Remember when I was a kid, Air Force was a good team.
oh yeah.
But it's
Well, they play their rival, the Coast Guard.
Yeah. But it's like every 10 years, one of the service academies seems to kind of make a splash on the national stage. And this is cool that there was legitimate talk that Army and Navy could have been undefeated going up to this game. There could have been talk of them in the playoffs.
Army only has one loss, right?
Yep. Yeah, to Notre Dame, who was number 4 or 5.
Number 4 or 5
time. Yep.
when they lost.
Yeah.
It's going to be a good game, a good weekend.
Yeah,
And I believe we got an event going on.
we do. We are
Tailgate.
partnering with the Travis Manion Foundation for a tailgate. So any VFW member, any veteran, any supporter, anybody who just likes to have a good time, please swing by the tailgate event. There'll be, some entertainment, some food, some drinks. Come on by, share some
It
camaraderie.
was just outside of the stadium, about a half mile down the road before you get into the stadium. So looking forward to some of that camaraderie over the weekend, and then a really good Army Navy football game. And all those.
Do we even talk about where it is this year? I mean, it's being played.
Sorry. Yeah, it's right down the road here.
Yeah.
Where in
Where the one Landover is played.
Yep, Landover, Maryland.
Was that FedEx Field?
No, it's
Formerly FedEx.
Formerly FedEx,
Oh,
now
man.
Northwest Field.
And that would be in Northeast.
Yes.
Northeast of.
That stadium is also a dump, but it's going to be a good game. Game. So we're very grateful to be going to that. It's local and maybe have a good time.
Well, I know that the folks up in Rhode Island, they have what was called the mother of all tailgates. It was like last year, and those folks did a really good job. So the Department of Maryland's putting this one on. Maybe there's a little inter-VFW rivalry. We'll see what happens as it moves around, because it's not always it moves every year, correct, Mike?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I think now that it's grown into a bigger national event. They used to play.
So they used to go. Yeah. So they used to go Philly,
Right.
Baltimore, Philly, Baltimore, and then so it was like home game, third party or neutral site. In the past, they've done it up in New York City. They did it at Foxborough, where the Patriots play. They've done it all over, and we'll see. I know there's a lot of talk about maybe going out and doing it in California. The huge military presence is out there.
Well,
like
that's
San
really
Diego
become a big national event.
Yeah,
I mean, the game of the week next week
Yep.
is Army Navy.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's actually great because, it hasn't really been this much attention on the game in a while, especially the great story of Army right now. Will you say 12-1? Is that what they are?
Yeah, they won loss. I don't remember their exact win count, but I mean, they're looking strong. People who are in the military, veterans, this is prominent. We pay attention to it. It's kind of broken outside that circle. In the past few years, it seems like it's gaining more and more national attention. That's awesome. Those guys, I say kids, they're not kids. A year from now, some of them may be commanding troops in austere places, but
They're kids.
and they are.
Come on, let's be honest.
But they're kids compared to us. But the men and women at those academies are about to do big things as soon as they're done. And hats off to them. They got a lot of work, especially those football players that are up against oftentimes other teams that have bigger, stronger players, and the fact that they are, winning as many games as they are, right? Army, 1 loss. Navy is really good this year. That's incredible to see, and it's a testament to their team, their cohesiveness, their the effort, all the work they put in. It's great.
Well, the other thing too that kind of amazes me that boy, we're really going fourth and long in this one. I think it really amazes me is that they have to meet military standards. We talked about that a little bit earlier about meeting military standards. They have to meet that, and they're playing teams with behemoths on.
They're playing people who don't have to care about height and weight standards. And
Right.
There's a guy who played for the Steelers. Was it Villanueva?
Villanueva.
Yes.
Was a West Point football player, and they did an interview with him about during the season he's obviously allowed to bulk up a little bit more, but they had a target of maybe 3 months later or whatever it was that they had to be back down to. That might be a little off on that. Someone don't get mad if I get wrong, but they have to get back within those standards within a certain amount of time, especially when you're graduating your senior year, because you're about to go to the fleet or you're about to go to an Army unit, and you can't be showing up looking like an offensive lineman. All right, like
You are one.
yeah, even if you are, you can't be looking like that.
I'm looking just like I didn't. No, I didn't look anything like this in high school.
There was a pretty good article this morning in ESPN about the day in the life of the cadets as football players, which gives pretty good insight to what they have to go through. So it's an exciting time, and I'm looking forward to and you want it to be a good game, right? For the seniors, it's their last opportunity, and you want them on both sides to have a good. Obviously, I want Army to win.
Yeah.
But you want to see a good competitive down to the wire game. I don't want to see like 56-0. I'll take it if it's an Army's favorite, but I mean, it doesn't need to be like a Super Bowl score.
We also don't need to see, though. I think like last year was like 17-11. How about a little more scoring? High 20s.
I'll go with that.
High 20s.
This is really
Couple
cool.
touchdowns, couple field goals, we're good.
Yeah. And you said you're gonna have a little bit of a get together at your place.
I'm not. This is the focus this weekend because that's the working with Travis Mannion and just about everybody that would be at my house will be over there. So
That's great.
we'll just have the party there
Yeah,
All right.
absolutely. And bonus, it's your birthday.
on Sunday. Yes,
That's right.
December 15th. Thank you for remembering.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll be 56. I'll be 7 in dog beers or 8.
So Army, if you're out there, let's go. Let's give him a birthday gift.
Go Army,
Everyone
beat Navy.
should
That's right. That's right. All right. So do we have anything else for the good of the order? Anybody else? I mean, it's Christmas coming up, holidays, and you guys have big plans coming up for that?
Just, I don't know, find your local Toys for Tots. We got a box out in the lobby.
Box here.
For anybody that's never had an opportunity to go do one of those, it's a really cool organization program. And, if you ever get an opportunity to actually take part in one of the events, it's pretty amazing. So, that's my recommendation every year. I got to do a couple when I was in the Marine Corps. And,
You just stood there in your
I think that like it was like actually when I did it was like working party in camis to like go pick up toy boxes, things like that. I didn't have to go do the whole stand there in your blues next to the donation, but still got to take part, and it was really fun. And still continue to try to do that. So
See a bunch
find a
of,
place if you can.
bunch of Marines last week in the PX at the K-Bay. They had their lists, and I'm pretty sure that's what they were going. Good shopping done for Toys for Tots. But to the group here and to everybody out there, thank you for everything. Happy holidays.
Yeah.
Yes.
And looking forward to the Christmas season. The kids are going to be up this weekend for Nana time, not pop-up time.
Yeah.
But I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and definitely a Happy New Year.
Well, thank you for being on the show. And for those out there, thank you for joining us. We are going to be off for the holiday break. The podcast will be up, but we'll be back in the new year and back with more interesting topics and, things to the good of the order and new business and old business and whatnot. So until then, from everyone here at the Washington, D.C. office of the VFW, we want to wish you happy holidays and a reminder that when it comes to the VFW, we are still serving. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Still Serving, the VFW podcast. To get the latest news and information from the veterans of foreign wars, make sure to follow, like, and subscribe to us on social media at VFW HQ, on Facebook at VFW Fans, or visit our website at vfw.org.